was unintentional, and it just happened, and it's happened to me, when I was, teaching before and I apprenticed, it just happens. But, we have to take it as it comes and.
I'll do the best I can.
You'll do fine, you'll do absolutely fine, and next Sunday, I'll do, like that concludes Daniel, so I'm gonna do a summary video then. I watched the video again, and I thought about asking you to, maybe we should watch it, but honestly, I don't think it would help for today. I think next Sunday we're gonna have to dive in today to, today's lesson.
I have some good context to go behind to help with a better understanding.
Gotcha.
So I have this book that I always go by that helps me with interpreting things a little bit better, so
Good.
Will you turn the heat off while you're over there?
it'll be good.
Yeah.
It's burning. I'm burning up in here.
Burn up, okay. I will. You want me to turn a fan or two on, or?
I'm fine with just the heat off if anybody else is fine with the heat off.
You gonna take care of the housekeeping?
Yeah, I'm gonna take care of housekeeping right quick, just, I see we have a couple guests.
This is,
My name's Matthew.
My name's Tyler.
Tyler? Raven.
They're Cantrells too.
Oh, is that right? Ah,
but not related.
Yeah.
I see.
Tyler's been a best friend of mine since middle school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm excited, glad you're here. Yeah. So,
Did y'all bring those kids?
No.
They left them on the side of the road somewhere.
So you did bring them?
Yes.
Did they find Jackson in the room?
They went downstairs.
Kinsley's at Phillips, but it's Carly back here.
Angie and Kathy kind of scooped them up and then took them in Janice's room and then sent them downstairs.
yeah, Janice is sick and
Yeah.
had to come do some combining, but,
Celeste took them from us when we first got here. It
Oh, Lord. How'd that go?
was alright.
They were okay with it.
all right. And other housekeeping stuff, we got a business meeting following the service today. And then, Bobby has scheduled a listening session for tonight at 5:30 p.m. So, that's just to discuss the church's future and what next steps are since he's the interim. So what we're gonna do, he's very, very good and has, got a plan. We've been talking in the deacons meeting about that, so I think tonight would be a good, hopefully everybody will be there. And, I think that's about it. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, well, thank y'all this morning. I'll open this up in prayer. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing us here together safely, dear God. Thank you so much for everything that you do for us, dear God. Please be with us. Please be with this church. Please be with all churches, dear God. Please be with all countries and people that desperately need your healing touch. In particular, right now with the crisis going on in Ukraine and Russia. Please be with all the people in this church, any health concerns and any needs that you know of. Please be with them. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you so much for your many blessings, and if anything, thank you so much for your love, dear God. We ask and thank these things in your wonderful and precious name, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So, as Matthew kind of touched on, this is kind of deep. So it's Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 14, and
Page 100.
Huh?
Page 100.
Yeah, page 100 if you have.
Page 100.
Oh, page 100. Yes, I did.
And you didn't take a
Let me see
prayer
which,
request.
Page y'all will be on. That's,
Write it down.
I probably should have brought my Bible.
okay, here we go.
You want my Bible?
I'm alright.
Here we go. And it will
I
have a
have a
text
pull it up on
in
my
there,
phone.
too.
Warner's right. I should have taken some prayer requests. Do y'all have any prayer requests? Or you have prayer requests written down already?
Pray for Angie's dad and their family. They've been going through kind of a some situations, so just pray that God will be.
What about your cousin? Still
You know,
on?
yes, please. I've been in contact with him. I wrote him a letter or sent him a card with a Bible verse. You know, I'm trying to do, well, you know, whatever God leads me to do, that's what I'm doing. And so pray for his salvation. His name is Chris. Thank you.
To give y'all an update on Brent, he had his doctor's appointment on the 17th, and it went extremely well, to my understanding. He's recovering quicker than they had anticipated. So now he can put a little bit of weight now on where it was anticipated for it to be 3 months. So that would have been March, where he can kind of shift over. So I'm sure that gives him a little bit more comfortability. But the biggest thing is that he is now able to walk with a walker instead of having to have someone carry him to like the bathroom or to take a shower or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So that's really good. So appreciating the prayers from that aspect. Still a long road to recovery. But so far so good.
Answer prayers in life. That's great.
Y'all got anything? You got anything?
Randy,
Randy.
even
that's
though we
right.
haven't, I
Yeah,
haven't
we
received an
reached out.
update from last week, but I'm sure that he still had his chemo and radiation. I need to reach out to him. I'll probably reach out tomorrow and see how he's feeling and how his wife
Yeah.
is.
Request that.
If that's already on my phone, it'll come off of it.
Okay, so page 100, we're going over to 101 to understand the context. Without actually reading it, just kind of give y'all I'm sure y'all have read this before, and if you haven't, Daniel has a dream that he sees essentially 4 beasts. One is a lion that has wings, another with a bear that has 3 ribs in its mouth, another beast that has 10 horns, and I'm going to actually read the verses and then kind of give what these beasts actually are meaning, or what they are. And then the 4th one is what we come to know as the Son of Man, which we know is Jesus. So I'll dive into that after reading. So on page 102, first verse. In the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream with visions in his mind as he was laying in his bed. He wrote down the dream, and here is the summary. The following account of Daniel's vision wasn't intended to be complete or detailed. Of his account, Daniel said, "In my vision at night, I was watching, and suddenly the 4 winds of heaven stirred up the great sea. 4 huge beasts." So the traditional interpretation of the beast is they represent the 4 kingdoms: Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, and Rome, came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, but it had eagle's wings. I continued watching until its wings were torn off. It was lifted up from the ground, set on its feet like a man, and given a human mind. Suddenly another beast appeared, and a second one that looked like a bear. It was raised up on one side, with 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, "Get up, gorge yourself on flesh." After this, while I was watching, suddenly another beast appeared. It was like a leopard with 4 wings of a bird on its back. It had 4 heads, and it was given dominion. After this, while I was watching in the night vision, suddenly a 4th beast appeared, frightening and dreadful and incredibly strong, with large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed, and it trampled with its feet whatever was left. It was different from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. When I was considering the horns, suddenly another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. And suddenly in this horn there were eyes like the eyes of a human, and a mouth that was speaking arrogantly. As I kept watching, thorns were set in place, and the Ancient Days, a name for God used only 3 times in the scripture, all here, Daniel 7. The name focuses on the eternal nature of God. The Ancient Days of dominion is everlasting. Took his seat. His clothing was white like snow, and the hair of his head like whitest wool. His thorn was flaming fire. Its wheels were blazing fire. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from his presence. Thousands upon thousands served him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was convened, and the books, the book of life, were opened. I watched them because of the sound of the arrogant words the horn was speaking. As I continued watching, the beast was killed and its body destroyed and given over to the burning fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was removed, but an extension of life was granted to them for a certain period of time. I continued watching in the night visions, and suddenly one like a son of man, though this term was used for Ezekiel and Daniel, in this context, it clearly refers to someone other than mere human. Jesus Christ, who is called the Son of Man in each of the 4 Gospels, was coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient Days and was escorted before him. He was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, so that those of every people, nation, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will not be destroyed. So, a lot to dissect there. What was I going to show? So, in this, we see that there are the 4 different beasts, the lion with eagle's wings, and that, so all the different beasts are different nations. So we know that or from what we can tell from what he is saying and what came to be, the lion with eagle's wings was Babylonia, which was King Nebuchadnezzar to Belshazzar. The bear raised on one side, 3 ribs in its mouth, was the Medo-Persia with King Cyrus to Darius. The leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads was Greece, which would have been Alexander the Great and the 4 divisions. The beast with iron teeth, 10 horns, small horn with eyes and a mouth, was a divided kingdom. Many scholars believe that this kingdom to be Rome. And then the Son of Man, of course, is Jesus Christ. So a little bit more into, before I start asking questions, a little bit more about the beast, the lion. More than 50 years after King Nebuchadnezzar dreamed, Daniel had a vision about 4 great beasts that were like a lion with eagle's wings, a bear, a leopard, and a terrifying, powerful beast. The 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms. Nebuchadnezzar of the Babylonian kingdom is compared to a lion in Jeremiah 4:7, also in Jeremiah 50:44, and to an eagle in Ezekiel 17:3, 11 through 12. Images of lions with eagle's wings were popular in Babylonia and can be found on ancient Babylonian architecture and currency. As for the leopard, Daniel's vision of a leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings may represent the kingdom of Greece. The 4 wings may illustrate the speed of Alexander the Great's conquest. The 4 heads may represent the division of Alexander's kingdom into 4 provinces after Alexander's death. Egypt under the Ptolemies, Syria under the Seleucids, Macedonia under the Antigonoids, and Pergamum under the Attalids. The Son of Man. After seeing the 4 beasts in a vision, Daniel saw one like a Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. The Son of Man, Jesus, approached the Ancient Days, God the Father, and was led into his presence. The Son of Man was given authority, glory, sovereign power. All peoples, nations, and people of every language worshiped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom will never be destroyed. So, with that being said, why do people place their hope in rulers and kingdoms for their security? What makes placing one's trust in a ruler or leader so appealing?
Yeah, you just, people all the time, they just need confidence, they need security. And, I don't know, there's something within all of us, I guess, that, desires that. I don't know. I think perhaps it is God-given. Maybe I'm not misspeaking, I hope I'm not. But, that it's actually a desire to, or for God. But, you know, being fallen and stuff, people like we are, I think we tend to look at the things that we can see instead of the things we can't.
Yeah, that's just another humanistic trait of ours, is to only see the like concrete evidence in front of us all the time.
I think people put their place in rulers and kingdoms is because they're not a ruler themselves, and so they're expecting that that's going to be the one that's going to give them leadership. And people that are looking towards leaders, the leader is showing confidence, and people gravitate towards confidence. So it's easy for people to not let themselves be a leader, but follow and put their trust in someone else that shows that confidence.
And isn't it easy, I see it myself, it's easy for me to see this person, whoever it is, like the President of the United States, whatever, and think like, wow, you know, look at all their accomplishments, and make them like bigger than life, actually, than just really they're they're like me and like you. But it's so easy to do that, our human mind just kind of goes there. And again, like you were just talking about, all these kingdoms that Daniel here is seeing, you know, they're very powerful kingdoms and all this stuff, but yet God has them in his hand, under his, you know, they were not, you know, like, they're not, you know, purposely said, we're gonna honor God. In fact, they didn't want to honor God. They wouldn't do that. But God allows them to be in power. He can tell, like we discussed last week, he can give it and take away whatever. And so it really speaks to his sovereignty. And we tend, I tend to forget, you know, how big God is. I want to minimalize who he is.
So, a little bit that was interesting as I was studying this week, and I should have asked you sooner, but I just assumed that this was what it was, and then I was like, man, I didn't even find out. But what was interesting to me is, as I was reading this, I was like, man, I haven't touched base with this in a very long time.
Yeah.
So, but what I did is my boss and I, this past week, we've actually been talking about the rapture.
Oh.
And so what I did we were talking about identifying the Antichrist, and so where we think he was going to come from. What was great is that conversation that I had with him, then led me to Wednesday night, which your father does a phenomenal job, and I thoroughly enjoy going back and forth with him. And so I spoke with Sam, and I was like, Sam, I know that none of us know, but in all of your studies and your knowledge, where do you think the Antichrist is going to come from? With that being said, I hope that none of us are. In my beliefs, I think that knowing Jesus, we won't be here to know. But just curiosity, where we think. And so he said that when he was in college, he had this professor that came from, I can't remember where he said he came from, but he was at great knowledge. And he said that he thinks the lineage is going to come from Caesar. Now, where he got the information or whatever it is, I don't know. That was just a good, interesting coming from, because we don't hear anything out of Rome or Greece or anything like that. Which then led me to watch Left Behind, which I haven't done in a long time. Not the Nicolas Cage one, but the remember back in the 90s?
Yeah.
So they had the whole series. So I went and watched it. And so it was interesting because the guy in the movie, his name is Nikolai Carpathia, and he comes from Rome.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so before watching it, you wouldn't. I picked up on it because I had already known about that, because I'd seen it one time before, but not knowing what I know now watching it, I found it interesting because here he gets 10 leaders in a room, and he sits there and is saying how they're going to have their kingdom, which then comes to this with the 10 horns, which is the 10 countries that's going to have leadership. And he then says, and you would have to have read the Bible to understand the movie. So he even says, we're going to have 7 years of peace and everything. So at that moment, you're like, boom, you're the Antichrist. So I just thought it was interesting that I was having this conversation with my boss, led to me talking to Sam, and Sam saying that his teacher was talking about coming out of Caesar's lineage, which would be Rome, and then this guy comes from Rome. So I'm like, man, maybe I need to be looking at Rome. Anyway, back to this. I just found it interesting because it's funny how God works, and how it just all ties into everything is his will regardless. So you kind of mentioned he will give you strength, give you power, give you confidence, give you money, give you whatever it is, and just as quick he can take it all away. At the end of the day, it's going to be whatever he wants it to be anyway. So he has the plan. He had the plan. He gave it to Daniel. And what I love about this text, before I ask any other questions, is this is Old Testament, and I love how everything can be tied to Jesus, almost with everything. So all these other kingdoms fail and get destroyed, and Jesus is the way and is the kingdom. So that's the main thing of it all. So what did the characteristics of the fourth beast combine to create a greater fear? What made it more dangerous?
It was the biggest, the scariest. It had more of the ability to devour kingdoms and people, and to me that would be more terrifying. I mean, if you've got something bigger and badder and scarier with more teeth and whatever, I mean, that's a little more terrifying than just anything else. It's like a snake versus a lion. You Blake, are scared of snakes, but which one do you want to be covered in blood standing in front of? A snake.
Yeah, but I'd rather be the lion than the snake.
But you're not the snake or the lion, you're standing in front of it.
Well, I'm going to stand behind the lion.
You're not standing behind, you're standing in front of. Which one are you going to want to stand in front of covered in blood? You're going to want to stand in front of a snake or something with big, loud, furry, massive teeth that's going to devour you in any instance. You're going to want to stand in front of a snake.
I like lions better, so I would rather
You're
be with
missing the point on that. Completely.
To answer your question, I would be least scared to stand in front of a lion realistically than I would a snake. You getting me off though, but
I'm
anyway.
not, because it literally, the fourth beast it has more teeth, it has 10 horns, it devours people, it's more easy to destroy things compared to, I know a snake is not necessarily a beast, but I would want to be standing in front of a snake that's not gonna have all these teeth to come and eat me.
You tend to agree with that?
Good point, yeah.
Um,
And you know, something that, I hope I'm not misspeaking, but, you know, what, Jesus was born during the Roman, reign, and, perhaps, you know, well, I mean, one thing is that the scarier, the more danger, and, you know, they're the one who put him to death, put Jesus to death, and, of course, we know, you know, outset, God has all this in control, but maybe it speaks to that too. You know, like, you know, hey, this is how powerful this kingdom was. They put Christ to death and tried to, you know, eradicate, wipe him off the, failed in doing so. But,
I was about to say failed drastically because he lives.
yeah,
So,
but, anyway,
but it had to happen.
yeah.
It had to happen that way. And God had it planned from the, you know, what's amazing to me is studying, I've been studying the Bible since January in chronicle order, not just in Genesis, but Bobby is kind of going at I mean, because we only see him on Sunday when he preaches on it, but he's going at this pace. And so what's interesting to me is going back on what it is that I've studied, and God gives everyone all these chances, time and time and time again, and they fail him over and over and over, and so he had no other choice. He had no other choice but to send Jesus. And so that's what's amazing. So he's like, y'all all think that y'all got this all figured out. You don't. And I'll put you on your head. So anyway, how does the dream shared by Daniel give hope for eternity? Oh, I love this one.
Well, basically what we've just said. Yeah, I mean, there's always hope. There's always an escape. You know, I think that's God's grace, isn't it? And you know, like you just mentioned, you know, time and time again, God knows we're gonna fail Him, but yet He's willing to work with us over and over and over. And there's always, you know, what we were studying in Ezekiel, and you know, Ezekiel had the mission of saying, okay, Israel, you've been pretty bad, and here's going to be judgment, but on the other hand, there's going to be hope.
Absolutely.
And here, you know, these kingdoms, they're arrogant. Well, we mentioned in verse 11, arrogant, you know, prideful. Look at how Alexander the Great, for example, or Caesar. You know, look at how big I am. Look at what I can do and all that stuff. Nah, you know. You know, there will be judgment at times, but man, God gives us grace, and there's going to be hope, and our hope is, the only hope
is Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that is the answer. I mean, so it doesn't matter. So when I look at it in hindsight, I know that this is prophecy, but you can put 7, 8, 9, 10 beasts in there, and you can create whatever. You can have, like in Job, those two, behemoth and whatever the other one, and you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's God's going to overcome it all. He already has, but He will in the future, as this is prophesizing. So it doesn't matter. And the thing that I say, especially when I read these and then I have conversations with people about it, it is interesting to me how Satan works in the way of how many times do you got to get beat to sit back and not give up? I think when he went and tempted Jesus and he realizes that he's not going to flip Jesus, it's over. How does he not say to himself, I've lost this thing? You got to be that miserable to continue to take that many souls with you. I mean, which is his ultimate goal. But I would, you lost this thing, my man. When he sits back and says to Jesus, this kingdom can be all yours and all that, and Jesus says, away from you, Satan. It's over. You have lost. There is nothing you can do.
and it speaks, and I think it speaks to how arrogant and prideful this being is. I mean, knowing his defeat, like you just said, but yet he's going to rebel against God no matter what.
Yep.
He will not be humbled. He will not be humbled. So we can.
He wasn't humbled when in heaven when he was with God to be casted out. He's not humbled when he comes as the Antichrist to then say he's God. But in the end, he will.
And when we see that or recognize that in ourselves, saying, okay, I need to have some humility here, and this struggle within me that wants to fight against God sometimes, then that's that old sin nature that we got from Adam.
That is absolutely right. We are, and we fail, and we're all gonna fail, and we're gonna continue to fail until we're here no more. But we have Jesus to fall back on every time.
And I was thinking too, about present day, like, China and Russia out there and all this stuff. And, okay, well, at the outset, okay, God's got it under control, am I worried? Yes, I am worried, for my kids and all this stuff. But on the other hand, I can step back and say, I don't have to worry. And God, I don't know, I have no idea what's coming, but Hebrews 11:6, the only way to please God is by faith, and I just have to trust Him in faith. Easier said than done. Absolutely easier said than done.
That's what I got.
Good job.
You have any mentions on that? Any thoughts?
Me?
Yeah.
Nah. You ever think the Pope could be the Antichrist?
I don't know.
Because he is in Rome.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've heard people say that.
and he does wield a lot of power.
That is
and
true.
he can be a figurehead to control nations.
Mm-hmm.
I've never I've never really analyzed it like that. That is true. That's something.
Especially this new Pope, and I say new, he's been on there, 5 or 6 years, whatever. But he's, like really liberal, and he's social, all this justice and all this stuff. It's very likely.
I think Rome's gonna rise again. Europe and all that.
What I've come to realize, and I love that Bobby did this last Sunday. I know that. So my favorite verse in the Bible, which Lauren knows this very well, because it just, before I even dive into this, the sinner's prayer that preachers go over can be found nowhere in the Bible, right? It doesn't say what it is that a lot of mega churches or anything says. But my favorite verse in the Bible is 2 Chronicles 7:14, and to me that just explains what everyone should do, which is humble themselves, right? Turn from their wicked ways, because it doesn't matter who we are all wicked. We're going to continue to be, because that's our human nature. We have no other choice but to humble ourselves from it, turn from our wicked ways, turn to Him, and ask for forgiveness, and He will hear us from heaven and heal our land. And that's the problem with America, is that we're getting away from it. And so all these, over time, Rome, Germany, Germany was a humongous Christian nation. They had churches everywhere, and along came Hitler, and we know what history happened after that. Then they turned from God, and God destroyed them. So here we are. What worries me is what we're facing with in today's time is that this nation used to be a great nation of Christian people, and it's getting destroyed every day. And so when people turn away from him and are not humbling themselves and are not asking forgiveness and are not turning towards God,
You're
what's
talking
to
about
say?
America now
Yeah.
being that way? Why?
Yeah.
Why do you think that
Why do I
is the
think
way?
that
I
way?
mean, I agree with you, but I'm curious as to why you believe that it's taken this downfall like Russia and Rome.
I didn't say that. You're talking about like Rome?
Yeah.
Because Rome fell because God was no longer
Mhm. Yeah.
a part of it.
Yeah, so,
So
why do
if
you
God
feel
is
that
not,
America is doing
if God is not the focal point in the country as a whole, not just with me, not just with you, not just with this church, not just with this community, but as a whole, if they turn away from God, then God is going to make them face,
So why do you feel like America has done that?
well,
Personally, why do you feel that way?
because the views of the liberal way that America goes towards goes directly against what he speaks of in the Bible. The ways of the world that is acceptable now, and it says in the Bible, what was good will be seen as evil, and what is evil will be seen as good. So, I mean, I'm not going to call out the specific things that are wrong that are acceptable now in our country, but there's things that are acceptable now in our country that it's not smiled upon by God. God is not happy with things that are acceptable to a nation. So that's turning away from God and saying we're going to do it our way. What used to be shameful and not proud of is now, well, now this is the way it is, and deal with it. Well, what the problem is you ain't gonna have to worry about dealing with me, in my opinion, because my opinion don't matter. You deal with God. That's about how I can wrap that up on that. So to answer your question, yeah, no, America is not like how it was, and so if it continues to go down a trail of destruction, then yeah, he's gonna make us pay the consequence.
Yeah.
And people are not paying attention. But if it goes back to 2 Chronicles 7:14, humble yourself, ask for forgiveness, turn to Him, and He will hear you and heal your land. How much time we got? A lot of time?
It's 10:46.
Yeah.
Well, Matthew, you have anything to add on to that?
I don't. Great job, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll wrap up Daniel next week, and I'll show you, like I said, I'll show the video, and kind of, you'll see Daniel in a big picture, but, we've been switching gears. Now we're getting more into prophecy, whereas before it was more about stories about Daniel and his friends and stuff like that. And one point, I didn't know this until, but today's lesson, actually, if you're looking chronologically, it actually happened before last week's, like chapter 6, we studied chapter 6 last week.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, today's events happened before last week's
Right.
events. So,
It's weird how they put it together, but that's why I like and I go by it on my app. But I'm reading in Genesis, and all out of nowhere, I'm in, where was I at? Corinthians.
Oh.
And I was like, how is Corinthians matched over here? I was like, why did they do it like this? But anyway, that's why instead of reading, a lot of people will read the Bible from beginning to end, and then there's a lot of stuff in the Bible, and so if you're not not to say going by an order is gonna help you in any other understanding, it's just, you have a different perspective.
Mhm.
Each time you go through the Bible, you learn something new, we know this, but to me, this go around, going through it in order helps you kind of see, and then that's why I have this, is because this gives me maps, timelines, so I like to actually visualize, and see, like I've been reading in Nehemiah, and then building the wall up in Jerusalem. And so actually seeing where the temple was compared to where everything else was, and so it, you know, as I'm reading, I can go and I look and kind of get a visual. So it's really neat, and I really like that to help. But it's interesting because you go from Genesis, and then all of a sudden it's taking you over here to Corinthians, which then ties in because Abram is talked about over here, and before he is Abraham, and then you got to come back over. I mean, so he's over. Abram is over here, but he's over here.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, they make a chronological Bible.
Do they?
Yes. It is fantastic. I've got one. It's fantastic.
I might need to borrow that from you.
Well, Angie's claimed it right now because she's reading, you know. But if you, it helps when you like reading Psalms. Then you go over to, was it Kings, maybe Samuel. Then you see what's going on in David's life, and then you look at what he wrote, and you're like, holy cow, that was going. He just like his life was a mess. And then he was writing, you should see the letters that he was writing down. It was fantastic. It just really stirs some emotion in me, because I'm thinking, maybe he's like 100% human, just like me. But yet he is able to tap and keep that connection with God. It's just, it's really, it's inspiring and whatnot. But anyway, that's just throw that in, since you mentioned chronology.
It's definitely cool. I really enjoy it.
We have one that's called, I want to say is it the wayfinding? I don't know, but there's 3 different ways you can read it. So it tells you like if you have kind of a time frame, like a year or, I can't remember how, but anyways, it divides it up into 3 different ways, and so it shows you where you start, and then it'll tell you like, okay, well now you go to this page, and it tells you, it directs you 3 different ways that you can read it, but it's the same way.
That's really cool. That's really cool. How it does it for me, and that's what I go by the app version of it, and it breaks it. I mean, it gives me how much I should read, and I mean, it has it this day, and so then it will be finished up by before December 31st. So it breaks it down. The only thing it doesn't do is, like with devotionals that I like, is it, after you read what you've read, then you kind of have a discussion about, or it gives you like a recap of, so to speak, of what you have said. In this case, it doesn't do that. So you got to kind of, what it does that is cool is afterwards you're supposed to, what the app is talk to God and see what you're receiving out of it, and then write down what your thoughts are for that. So that's cool in the midst of you pray and say, talk to me, God, and then whatever you receive, writing it down. So, but what I do before I read it is, tell me what you want me to understand, right here. Clear my mind. Tell me what you wanted me to see. So.